But now it's become a tradition on this show that as soon as I slam the laptop down, take the dog out for a WALK after the show ends, some big breaking news comes across. And yesterday we were talking about the free agent targets that the Patriots should look at wide receiver, namely Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, in some order if Cooper Kupp becomes a free agent. And then, of course, right after the show ends, the news comes across. The Jets cut Davante Adams. Not much of a shocker, but it hadn't happened yet. And now he's out there on the market. And this is a very intriguing name to be out there, if you ask me. Davante Adams, old, some might say, 30, 32, I want to say, turning 33 here pretty soon. Actually, no, December, he turns 33, 32 years old, and has this real connection with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why that would still be the case, but apparently it's still the case. Davante Adams is cut by the Jets. Now all it costs you is money, and he's still obviously a productive receiver, and he can still be a game-breaking receiver. Which is exactly one of the things that Drake Maye needs. A big name receiver, like you talk about T. Higgins, and that's all well and good. T. Higgins, a lot of, potential. Now he's off the board. Davante Adams is a number one receiver. There's no doubt about it. There hasn't been a doubt about it in a long time, right? T. Higgins, we don't know if he's a number one receiver. Chris Godwin, I still like all across the board, but is he a number one guy? He's played with Mike Evans his whole career. T. Higgins has essentially played with Jamar Chase his whole career. We don't know with those guys. We do know with Davante Adams. But there's all kinds of things that would point to, the Patriots should have interest, but does Davante reciprocate that interest? And I was watching Early Edition last night. Burt Breer basically said, there's no chance, Adam, unless you want to overpay, which we'll get to in a minute. But Phil Perry comes in and talks about the Aaron Rodgers of this all, because apparently everyone seems to think that he's going to go wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, which he's done before. Here's what Phil Perry had to say about that.
First of all, shame on him if he's going wherever Aaron Rodgers is going to go just because Aaron Rodgers is there. I mean, that guy shouldn't even be guaranteed a starting quarterback job next year. He just saw that movie. He was a part of it. 114 targets. He had a great year. 85 catches. He can still play. I think he can still play. But if you're determining where you're going to take your next step in your career because your buddy who really can't play anymore is going to be the starting quarterback, potentially, I don't know what to say about you. Listen, all of what Bert said to me sounds completely reasonable. Tom, if you want this guy, you're just going to have to try to pay through the nose. That's really your only option.
So I thought I was the only one thinking this. Like, I know he's done the Aaron Rodgers thing. He obviously played with Rodgers when Rodgers was in his prime in Green Bay. He gets the big money from Vegas. And then when he's out of there, he's like, I want to go where Aaron Rodgers is going. But, like, you just saw this happen. Aaron Rodgers is no longer Aaron Rodgers. If you just watched the week 3 against the Patriots and heard, the Thursday night football crew just fall all over themselves talking about how great Aaron Rodgers is and how he's back, you would think that, okay, yeah, maybe he wants to go wherever he goes. But then you watch the rest of the season. They were, 5-win football team, 4-win football team, just as bad as the Patriots. In fact, they lost to them when Davante was on the team. So I don't understand how Davante Adams just goes through a whole season of that. And it's like, you know what? I've got years left here. I've got productive years left. And I stand to make a lot of money in this free agency. But you know what? I really want to go wherever Aaron goes. Really? That's what you're going to hitch your wagon to? And as Phil points out at the end there, like, we don't even know if Rodgers is going to be a starting quarterback next year. That's a real concern. And if he is, and the hot name right now for Rodgers is the New York Giants, because they don't know if they want to go up for Shador, if they could just go and get a veteran free agent guy. Of course, for Patriots fans, you're hoping that's not the case. You're hoping they do go and draft Shador so that Travis Hunter can fall to you. But that's a real concern right now, is that the Giants might go out and get Aaron Rodgers, but like, then you're doing the same thing. Like the only difference between the Jets and the Giants right now It's the color of the uniform, the locker room that you're in within the same stadium. They are the same franchise right now. It's an absolute dumpster fire. You're going to win 4 games. So, yeah, you can tandem up with Malik Neighbors and you get to be with your buddy Aaron Rodgers, but like that organization is awful right now. Now, what the Patriots can give you, also in a bad spot, a good young quarterback who's actually going to be guaranteed to play, who has a ton of talent, and you're gonna get the ball. There's 2 things you're going to get if you come to the New England Patriots, Davante Adams. You're going to get a whole lot of money, like $30 million probably, and you're going to get the football. You might see it as there's going to be a lot more attention on you from the defense, but there's also going to be a lot more attention on you from the offense. There is no Garrett Wilson here. There is no Malik Neighbors. You're going to get the ball. You're going to be the only one getting the ball. You're going to be the focal point of this offense. And on top of that, there's people, talking about the relationship that he had with Josh McDaniels in Vegas. And I feel like that meme of the guy saying the worst person you know made a great point, because a lot of analysts have talked about that and how bad it ended there for both guys in Vegas. Obviously, McDaniels gets canned. Davante forces his way out the next year, and there was some friction there. But Greg Bedard, worst guy you know, makes a great point. Greg Bedard makes a good point here. He said yesterday, well, there is a very big difference in a relationship between player and head coach and player and offensive coordinator. Like, Davante fit really well into that Josh McDaniels offense, which isn't too dissimilar from what they were running at Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers for years. And so now that relationship being fostered as wide receiver and offensive coordinator versus wide receiver and big boss of the football team, that's a lot different. Bedard also went on to say, I think it was a little overblown what people thought of this relationship being a bad deal. So do I feel like the Patriots are the front runners to get Davante Adams? No, I don't. It's going to take a lot. But the one thing they can do that some other teams can't is they're going to pay out the ass to get this guy. They were about ready to throw $30 million at T. Higgins. Like, it's a crazy number. It's way more than they ever paid for Brady. But that's what this league is now. They know that's what it takes to go out and get a number 1 receiver. And Elliott Wolf sure knows a heck of a lot about him. And there were talks of Davante talking with some Patriots people at the combine. But like that's what the Patriots can give you. They're not going to get you into a Super Bowl this year for a guy who's never played in one. They're not going to be on the West Coast, which it sounds like that's what he wants. But what they can give you is a good young quarterback who is guaranteed to start, unlike Aaron Rodgers. And they can give you $30+ million. And they can give you the football. So that it's not for nothing. I think they're probably far down on his list. But what he could do is, let's play out the dream scenario, because right now it looks like, we're hearing the term that New England is Siberia for these NFL players. They don't want to come and play here. The facilities aren't that great, apparently. It's in the middle of nowhere compared to if it was in Boston. There's all these kinds of things, right? But if the dream scenario happens, you pay $30 million and get Davante Adams in a Patriots uniform, that changes a lot of things, I think. Like, right? Because now you're not just selling them on the good young quarterback of Drake Maye. And this is any position on the football field, by the way. You're not just selling them on the good young quarterback with team control. You're selling them on that and an all-pro wide receiver. So now we've got a legitimate connection here. And you've got the guy with the keys on the offense with Josh McDaniels that you want to have the keys of the offense. That changes the perception of this team for a lot of free agents out there. A lot of them. But it'll probably go to the Chargers, if we're being honest. The guy likes the West Coast. And if he's not going to go play with Aaron Rodgers, that's probably Rodgers or the Chargers, if you will. I do want to point out one more thing, because yesterday on the show, I talked about how much I actually sneaky like these wide receivers that are going to be available. This is before Davante Adams got cut. And those guys being Chris Godwin and Amari Cooper in free agency, and potentially Cooper Kupp in free agency if he gets released by the Rams. I like all three of those guys. Godwin's coming off a big injury, and that is something of a red flag that the team that's had him for his whole career is not willing to franchise tag him and ready to let him go to market after this injury that made him miss more than half the season. Made him miss 10 games last year when he was on pace for a career year. Was on pace to break his personal best for receptions and potentially yards as well. But I look at these stats. Davante Adams, I think, still has a lot left in the tank. And this is not apples to apples, right? One of them's coming off an injury. There's a difference in age here. But Davante Adams had a good year last year with the Jets. He didn't have 85 catches like Phil Perry said in that clip earlier. He had a good year. He had 114 targets with 67 receptions. That's a lot left out there on the table. Maybe that's a sign of the quarterback that's throwing to him, Aaron Rodgers. But that's 47 targets that he did not come down with. It's not that crazy for a receiver that gets looked at that many times. But 47 is kind of a big gap there. So he gets 67 catches on 114 targets for a gap of 47 balls in there that he doesn't come down with. Let's look at Chris Godwin's last full year. 83 catches on 130 targets. Quick math here. That's 47 balls in the gap. The difference between his receptions and targets, 47. The same as Davante Adams last year. And he had more catches and had more targets in his last full season and had more yards than Davante Adams did, and what we all considered to be a good positive year on a bad team last year. And that 23 Bucs team, they were okay. I think they snuck into the playoffs, but it's not like they were this great team. So maybe, just maybe, you can get Chris Godwin at a lower price. He is going to be the number 2 free agent on the market here at wide receiver. But you're going to be able to get him at a lower price with maybe some more tread on the tires and get about the same production that you would get for Davante Adams.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.